How's it going? It's Jumpsuit John. And let's jump into it. We're going to keep going with our classes. And today, alphabetically, is one of my favorite classes. You know them, you love them. It's the Cleric. I love the Cleric. I really do. It's one of my favorite classes. It's one of those classes that I just kind of naturally draw to. And there's a couple of reasons why that is. It's a class that, in my opinion, is the true heart and soul of a party. Played correctly. Now, that being said, you know the formula by now. We're going to get into the bad, and then we're going to get into the good. Or rather, we're going to get into the how you can make it better. So let's get started with some of the negatives. The negatives. First off, I don't think anybody at Wizards of the Coast knows what they're doing with this class. Is it a healer? Is it a fighter? Is it a wizard? Is it a sorcerer? Is it a warlock that just has shiny bits? They don't know. And I think there's some problems insofar as clerics are concerned, somewhat mechanically. And what I mean by that is, like, the mechanics seem to be somewhat disconnected from the worship of the cleric. And that's what the cleric is about. The cleric is about absolute devotion to a particular god. This is where the disconnect can come in, right? Say a cleric casts holy weapon. Well, that doesn't make sense. They're worshiping, I don't know, they're worshiping Thor. Thor's all about lightning. He doesn't have a holy anything. The concept of a holy anything is kind of obscure to him. Holiness is not a thing in Norse mythology. Hell, let's take a look at Norse mythology for a second. Most of the time, whenever you go into any of the sagas or any of the written stories of Norse mythology, the theming is overcoming issues and then falling to tragedy, but persevering in the face of that tragedy. Odin, right? Did everything that he possibly could to figure out wisdom. He wanted to be the wisest and smartest person in the entirety of the pantheon, right? Stabbed himself on a tree, gave up his eye, the whole thing. Persevered, struggled, lied, and weaseled his way into every possible advantage that he could, only to find out that in the end, he was just going to get eaten by a dog. None of it was going to matter. And not just him. He found out that his son was going to be killed by the big snake in the ocean. That all of these bad things are going to happen. That's the religion. Right? So say you're a cleric and you're worshiping this religion. How do you exactly get holy? I don't think you can. And it even gets especially worse whenever you have polytheistic gods. Multiple gods. A whole pantheon. Well, I'm a priest of this. I'm a priest of that. I'm a priest of that. Look, you're not really a cleric at that point. You're just a priest. You go to this specific temple, this is the person that you worship. And once again, there's even more of a disconnect. Say you're like a priestess of Aphrodite. Or Athena. We'll go with Athena. Aphrodite's a little bit too, you know what I'm saying. She's a little too... Ugh. She's not PG. So we'll go with Athena. You're a priestess of Athena. Wisdom in war, right? But you got to be a virgin. You got to protect it. And what blessings would Athena bestow on a person anyway? Wisdom in battle, I understand that. But like, healing? Not so much. So there's a disconnect there. There's a strangeness between mechanics and the themes that you're trying to go for, right? So why was this, like, when, before I get into that, this is the issue here. This is the true issue, right? Because of that disconnect, it makes it hard to roleplay accurately. There's not a way that you can theme your spells, prayers, really, in a way that accurately worships or is you're given divine power by the deity that you do worship. They've tried to go around it in certain ways. I think what it was, they had some kind of like thunder cleric or a nature cleric, but they're too ambiguous. They're too ambiguous. It makes it hard. There's a disconnect between what you can do and the deity that you worship. Are there ways around this? Absolutely. Listen, I'm the guy that goes on and rambles around creativity all the time. All the time. I am very sure that there's a creative way that you can make this whole situation work. Have I tried it? No. And why haven't I tried it? Because as much as I like to narrow the scope, sometimes I just want things to be a little bit easier. So I always keep myself monotheistic with the worship of a God that is as close to Judeo-Christian values and myth as I possibly can. Sounds like a cop-out. That's the way I play. Let me give you an example of a deity that I created, right? A deity that my character worshipped. His name was Elias Ballantine, right? And he worshipped a martyr called the Staked Lady. He was an order, a cleric in the order of the Staked Lady. The Staked Lady was a martyr for her entire people. All of her people were going to be wiped out. And she stood up and said, no, I will be the one to intercede. Sacrifice me. There's a little bit more intricacies with it, but the concept was I kept it monotheistic. And it played well into the powers. Holy weapon. Well, she was a virtuous lady. Smite. The vengeance of God from this martyr. Easy ways to kind of move into it to where it's simple enough to understand, but complex enough for it to make sense. There's verisimilitude there, right? Like the powers don't just seem like they're coming out of left field and I just picked them off of a random list because it sounded cool. Other issues with clerics, specifically people that play clerics, is they do not commit to the bit. They do not commit. I'll say this in a future video about paladins, but clerics can be just as bad. Give it 3 sessions and you'll be making accommodations for witches and wizards. For Satan worshippers in your group. Because we all know it. You can't avoid it. There's always that one edgelord inside of your group that wants to be evil. And he's going to do some wicked, wild stuff. And, of course, he's going to be the one that when everybody starts complaining, he's the kind of person to say, oh, but it's in my character. My character would do this. I'm evil. It's what my character would do. And yet whenever you come back at him as a cleric and say, all right, well, I cast smite on you, they're going to say, well, that's not fair. You know the kind of people I'm talking about. But yeah, they will. They'll start making accommodations for all kinds of bad stuff that happen. They will not chastise the weird barbarian that starts going around punching shopkeepers because they wouldn't give him a discount on a toothpick. They'll make accommodations for the fighter that goes in and steals everything from a manor. They'll start agreeing to plans from stealing from the local lord, to being a thief. You are not a thief. You are a cleric. You are a man or woman of God. Your job is to hold their tenets and principles to the letter. Period. Bar none. And I think whenever we look back at the older the older generations and editions of Dungeons and Dragons, they had this figured out pretty right. Listen, buddy, you mess up once. You go against your God's tenets once, you'll lose it all. We don't have that in the current edition. 5th edition is nice and, it's got the kid gloves on. But back in the day, baby, listen, if you were caught swearing and your God commanded you to keep your composure at all times, and you were just, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this person, you lose it. No more miracles or prayers for you. It's not happening. Your God is deaf to your pleas. That's how it used to be. And that's a great way to do it. That's one of the best limiting factors in the old school Dungeons and Dragons. Actions have consequences. You narrow the scope farther down for your character based off of the oaths and religious beliefs that you practice. This is your box now. You have limited yourself to this. Commit to the bit. Don't give up. Be strong. But no, people fold. They fold for out-of-game reasons. They fold because they don't want to make a fuss at the table. They don't want somebody feeling ostracized. They don't want somebody, feeling as if they're not welcome. Which, good on you, right? You're playing a cleric. That's kind of be what you want to be, kind of what you want to do. But do that in character. Do that in character. What if you're playing the cleric, and instead of letting the thievery slide, you put your foot down and say no, but you gently say, there's another way, we're just not thinking about it. Let me go pray on it for a little bit. When somebody starts doing horrible stuff, and this is going to sound bad, you report them to the town guard. You tell them, listen, if you don't cut this out, this stops now. And if you don't, I will not hesitate. You can be forgiven. I'm giving you the opportunity. But I won't let you continue to hurt people. You play the cleric. Hell, a cleric is supposed to be somebody of a religious organization that goes out and proselytizes anyway, if your religion proselytizes. Why is it so out of the realm of possibility that instead of allowing horrible shit to happen in your game, you try to change it through the lens of faith? Wouldn't that be novel? So let's get into what you could do possibly about that whole situation, right? Let's narrow down. Let's get down to those bricks, right? Okay. The basis. And this is why I believe there's a gigantic disconnect in the current Dungeons & Dragons system from the mechanics. The basis of the original cleric was one man and one man alone. Much like in the Barbarian video when I said Conan was the archetype, there is a specific and singular archetype for cleric. It's Moses. What are you talking about, Jumpsuit John? Moses The Moses from the Bible? Yeah, the Moses from the Bible. That is the inspiration for Cleric. Don't believe me? Sticks to snakes. Oh, that's what Moses did. Create water. Oh, and Moses struck the rock, and out from it came water. Create food. Manna from heaven. The Israelites were walking across the desert. They were not allowed to go into the Holy Land, but God covered them in a cloud, and every morning they had manna to eat. Now, that wasn't Moses, but he was the head guy. Command human. Well, the 10 Commandments. Listen, most of the Cleric stuff comes out of the Bible, and most of it comes from Moses. Are there a few things here and there that don't exactly line up? Absolutely, but I'm pretty sure you could find them somewhere in the Old Testament. And listen, if there was ever a person to base your kind of character as a Cleric off of, listen, Old Testament guys were the guys to do it. Those were the guys to do it. I'm thinking like Samuel, right? Like Samuel. Before David showed up, there was a king in Israel, and it was it Saul? I think so. Can't exactly remember. I think it was King Saul before David. Anyways, Saul was supposed to go out and fight this kingdom, right? And the commandment was kill them all. Period. Done. I don't exactly agree with that in my personal life as far as genocide, but in the Bible it was a thing. And at this time. Take it for what it is. Don't infer anything as far as my beliefs from that. But in the story, Saul was supposed to kill the entire kingdom, even down to the cows, the women, the children, everybody. But Saul didn't do that. He left the finest women, he left some of the finest cows, and he left the king alive. And Samuel, your Cleric insert, was a prophet. And Samuel shows up and said, you King Saul, did not follow the words of our God. You didn't do it. But that's okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Because you left these people alive, one day, one of their offspring is going to kill you. And you won't see it coming. You screwed the pooch. You get what you fucking deserve. And then he turns around to the king that he was supposed to be conquered and said, because of the women and children that you've killed again, and the crimes that you've committed against the people of Israel, I sentence you to death. And I think the proper, I'm not exactly sure, but essentially the gist of it is he took a sword and chopped that man into literal mist and dust. He chopped that man into bits until he was a blood smear on the ground. That's a Cleric. So radical and devoted to that particular religion that, baby, one slip up, you'll lose it all. You're cursed. And they believe it fanatically. Let's go to Moses, the core archetype of this whole thing. Not without a troubled past. And listen, I'm not here to give you a Bible story. This is just the source material. Moses, rough past, grew up in Egypt as an Egyptian. Saw one of his people getting messed up, murdered a guy, got exiled, left. Had a divine experience. A bush, a flaming bush, talked to him. Told him, yo, I am that I am. I want you to go back to Egypt, free the people, free my people. Immediately, without question. Well, not without question. He looked at the freaking flaming plant and said, listen, I am slow to speech. I'm a stutterer. I have problems. I can't talk to people. Send somebody else. And the bush said, who are you talking to? Who made man's mouth? Who made the deaf Oh, God, that scene in Prince of Egypt. Oh, that scene just kills me. It's so good. Val Kilmer as God. Oh, my God. Perfect God voice. But you get it. And then he did it. He went out. He tried and he tried. Listen, hey, let my people go. Let my people go. No. Let my people go. No. Okay, fine. Plagues. I tried to warn you. You would not listen. River of blood. Frogs. Boils. Locusts. And then the big shebang at the end. That's a cleric. So forthrightly devoted to their deity that whatever their deity says, they're doing it. And we have to examine why, right? Like, why would a cleric? Because, listen, I understand that nowadays, right, everybody criticizes somebody that says they hear from God. And rightly so, because 9 times out of 10, that person's a loony, right? But in the setting that you're playing, the only reason why you became a cleric is because you had some kind of divine encounter. The God that you're worshiping was made real to you, and that's the way that you should play it, in my opinion. You should play it as far as your backstory, right? Either you grew up in that particular sect and religion and it was just always correct to you, period, done, or you had a Paul on the road to Damascus moment. You had a moment that woke you up. And that moment was so powerful, you will never question that deity, ever. Whatever they say, you'll do. And whenever you call upon them, you know without a shadow of a doubt that they're there listening. And that's where your miracles come from. And you also live as a cleric with the fear that if you slip up once, buddy, you're done. For 2 reasons. One, you've seen the shit that he does to the people that don't listen to him. Why wouldn't you? And 2, whatever that encounter was so life-changing that to go against this deity feels morally wrong. You can't understand it, but you know that if I do something against him, even if for some reason I feel a little icky about it, I can't. There's a reason. There has to be a reason. And so you do it. Clerics, because they have that much faith, they are the heart and soul of your party, because they will also place that faith in you. You should play a cleric so straight and so down the road of exactly what a cleric is supposed to be that your party members feel bad whenever they do wrong things against you. You don't have to be the Boy Scout. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to be committed. You eat, sleep, and breathe your deity. When you go to bed at night in this game, you are reading your book. Your holy texts. You will use your holy texts in order to win arguments. Hell, like Martin Luther. He saw that the great big church was doing a whole bunch of stuff, mainly about the entire cause of alms. Essentially, the concept was you could pay your way to get into heaven. And he took real big umbrage with this. He said, wait a minute. Money is what gets you into heaven? I thought God was God. I thought God could do anything. So you're saying that we got to pay $25 to get my sister's arm out of hell. That means God can be swayed by money. God can do whatever he wants to do, you fucks. No, he probably didn't swear. But he had a religious moment and he stuck to it. He committed to it without wavering. And that was a bad time to waver against the Catholic Church. Let me tell you what. They would saw you in half, literally. Hang you upside down and saw you in half. You're the heart and soul of the party. You're the Moses. You're the Martin Luther. But you're also a comfort to the people. Like with the bard, your inspiration is supposed to come from the party in order to inspire the masses. As a cleric, your job is to bring comfort to both your party and the masses. To give them assurity, to give them faith, encouragement. You are supposed to be the guy or girl that goes into the party, and when things are looking low, you're the rock they can get behind. Because you won't waver. The fighter's down. The wizard's out of spells. The thief is nowhere to be seen. He's scared and hiding in a barrel. Who's standing? The cleric is standing. And he says, I know that my deity is stronger than all of this. And I work through him. If he's on my side, who's against me? That's cleric. The cleric is supposed to be the heart and soul, truly devoted, willing to listen, but firm in his beliefs, and firm in the morality that surrounds them. You're never going to take it away from a cleric, and if you do, the cleric should lose it all. They go down to being a nobody. Disgraced. Can they get it back? Well, maybe. And that's my opinions on clerics. They're a great class. They really are. It allows you to get into the more positive sides of Dungeons and Dragons, because listen, well, at least in my opinion and in my games, because I play my games pretty dark. They're pretty moody. And the cleric is the one person that can pull everybody up out of the mire. That's what I found. And cleric players pretty much play it straight. That's one class that I never really see people mess up with. Or get too weird. So play cleric. And have fun with it. Be encouraging. Be the heart and soul of the party. Be the unbending tree when the storms come. Be the guy they can rely on. Be the guy that can save them. For whatever that means. Be a cleric. Hey, I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you learned something. And if you didn't learn anything, I hope you felt something. I really do appreciate it. I appreciated all the comments on my last video. Keep in mind for the stuff to come out. Like, share, subscribe, press the bell, give a little ring-a-ding whenever the new stuff comes out. I've got a little bit of a push for inspiration for my game from a couple of friends of mine. It's really pushing me forward. Give me a root for that if you want to. And let me know down in the comments, hey, am I off the mark with Cleric? What's your experience with Cleric? Give me a cleric you played and how you played him. Down in the comments. Let me know. Anyways, that's enough out of me. Come on. Let's get back to work. Have a good one.